And to be a high achiever means that we value what we do and what we know very, very highly. But to do that, this also often implies that we undervalue who we are. And it's useful in the early stages of business, in the early stages of our career, to work really hard to get to a certain point. But there becomes a point in everybody's career, in everybody's business, in everybody's leadership journey where you can't outwork the problems that you have anymore.
So you found it, the soul of connection. If you're succeeding at everything except the relationships that matter most, this is for you. I'm Tressie Yonakawa, brain science, no fluff, real change. Okay. Oh my goodness. I am so happy, grateful, grounded to be here with you today, Kyle, because you are someone that I have so much respect for. We've done some work together, and you are the most precise filter that I have met. You take in all the information and you bring clarity to any conversation, any situation. So I'm going to count on you to do that for me today and with me today. And would you just tell people who you are and what you love about what you do?
Yeah, I am a world-class storytelling and presentation expert, and I help many talented people who are very, very good at what they do. They have a ton of knowledge, and they have a hard time navigating all of that knowledge and putting it into good stories and good teaching points to help them sell more from podcasts, stages, sales calls, and conversations. And so a lot of what I do is I act like a mirror and a somewhat like a therapist. And instead of telling people what good stories are and helping them intellectualize them, I ask great questions and then reflect back stories and teaching points and possibilities so they can experience what it is like to feel those stories from outside of themselves. Because, and this is one of the things that I love about the work that I do, is we all relate to ourselves very inappropriately. Like, what I mean by that is, um, what we think is a good story to tell is not usually the right story to tell. And the right story, and by the right story, I mean the story that could really have a big impact on your audience and magnetize the right people to you, are usually ones that we have some kind of judgments on about ourselves. And so most of the people I work with are struggling really unnecessarily, and helping them experience their stories from a different perspective is not only powerful in terms of helping them convert more from the stage, but I see them start to make different decisions in their lives afterwards, which is really, really beautiful and inspiring.
I love that. And you have helped me with that. You've helped most of the people that I know with that as well. So I'm excited to have you here today because I want to get into the connection piece of that, the relationshiping piece of that, and the primary relationship is with ourselves. And a lot of times we forget that because, like you say, we're telling stories to be performative, hoping to hook people in or connect with people or help people even. I think a lot of us want to help other people, but the stories that we tell ourselves and each other are often masking, performative, protective. And so what influences have you had to make you a great storyteller and also, maybe even more importantly, a perceiver of great stories and distiller of great stories?
I've had a lot of great teachers, some internal and some external. I've gotten to work with people who have mastered these kind of frameworks, and I got to see others listen carefully and then reflect back stories and see the power of that. Pat Quinn, who is a speaking coach, was one of my greatest mentors in this particular field, and getting to see him consistently lead groups of people to better expression and better signature talks was some of the best training I could have ever hoped for in my life. Um, I've experienced a lot of this work that I do firsthand, and through my own learning to uh, be with myself. I think one of the biggest moments that I've experienced, I remember it was probably in 2017, speaking with my first coach ever. And I can remember telling him about an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's disease that I was experiencing at the time. And I was expressing a lot of frustration. I had joint pain in my arms and in my wrists and in my jaw. I was fatigued. I was anxious all of the time. And the problems would just move around my body. I couldn't quite figure things out. And I was so sure that this was a curse, that this was the worst thing ever to happen to me, that it had condemned me in my life to be a certain way. And I can remember him telling me, what if Hashimoto's disease is your superpower? And I remember laughing at him and being so enraged at the audacity of saying something like that. How I was so convinced that this problem was a problem. And I almost hung up the phone and doubted if I ever would engage in coaching ever again, because it was just such a silly thing. But about a year later, as my career was progressing, I found myself facilitating a workshop filled with health and wellness experts. And all of these health and wellness experts wanted to get on more stages and share more of their story and grow their business with it. And I remember sitting next to one woman over lunch, and she said, "Hi, my name's Dr. Grace, and I help people overcome chronic autoimmune diseases through better gut health." And I started thinking about my own journey and my own experience through this, how there was like all of these different problems that didn't seem connected at all, that became clear. And I said, wow, so your clients must do this, they want this, but that happens. And her jaw dropped. And she was like, oh my God, you need to come work with me. Nobody's ever said it like that before. And in that instant, it changed how I related to myself. And what that coach had suggested was true all along. You see, what I thought was a curse actually gave me insight that was incredibly valuable for a particular group of people, health experts who charged for their high-ticket services, were very, very smart and very, very talented and very, very frustrated because they couldn't reach their ideal clients because they were getting so caught up in the science. They were getting so caught up in all of these things, and they just couldn't get results for their business, which also meant that there were many more people like me who had no idea these kind of people existed at all, and were struggling. And so in an instant, this changed things. The thing that I thought was a curse, the thing that I thought was a condemnation for me, became an edge and an advantage, and something that made me stand out to a particular audience who really needed me. And it helped me grow my business, set myself apart in a crowded marketplace, and connected me with people who could help facilitate my own healing and a process of healing, which I have found to be very valuable for myself and many others. And it didn't just come from, I had skills, I had talents, I'm very smart, but it came from my story.
Right.
And this is the same kind of experience and transformation that I find I facilitate for many of the people that I work with. We kind of have to trick ourselves into seeing things from a different perspective that would allow us to find value in something that we have, for one reason or another, really decided is not very valuable.
Is that a conscious decision, do you think?
Not entirely. I think I have a theory, and to get to where you are or I are, or probably most of the listeners of this podcast, or people in the masterminds that we've found ourselves in,
Mhm.
we have to become high achievers.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of work to become who we are. And it's a lot of hard work and challenges and sacrifice and all of those things. And to be a high achiever means that we value what we do and what we know very, very highly. But to do that, this also often implies that we undervalue who we are. And it's useful in the early stages of business, in the early stages of our career, to work really hard to get to a certain point. But there becomes a point in everybody's career, in everybody's business, in everybody's leadership journey where you can't outwork the problems that you have anymore. And this is usually when people come to work with me. They come when they're so busy they don't have the time to write a new talk, and they need somebody who can surgically help them write a talk quickly to get better results. But the reason why they are so busy is because they're over gripping on their business, they're over gripping on their lives, they're working really, really hard, and they're not fully uh, like grasping their value, just like I was. And
Mhm.
so it's not a conscious decision. I think it's something that takes, that is just like a natural result of becoming who we are. And it becomes so solidified in our minds and perspectives that it's like we don't notice it's there.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing about, high achievers, because we know a lot of them. And one of the reasons that I started my first business or wanted to work with leaders was that I was fearful. Looking back on it now, I wouldn't have described it like this before. Before, I would have said, I just want to help people, which now I do. But at the time, I also had an intense fear of not having the safety of being able to make enough money to have the safety. So having had models that, that were in transition quite a bit. So it's an interesting place that, the motivations for high achievers can be, I just want to be really successful at this thing. It can also be, I'm terrified of not being successful at something. Do you find that with your clients also?
Absolutely. They wouldn't admit that right away. Um, but I mean, I wouldn't admit it either, but I guess I would, because I have that. Um, I have spent more than my fair share of time operating a business and a life from this terror of
Yeah.
not being good enough, of this unworthiness, which is, I think a lot of us do. And it has much more of a grasp on most people than I think we would care to admit. And the thing is, it like has such an impact on your, like, well, I'll just say it from my perspective, and anyone listening can decide if it applies to them. But when I wake up in a place of fear or in a place of inadequacy, the decisions that I make are different. And I'll try to wake up and do things from a place of panic. I'll try to send enough emails to people to hopefully bring in the right clients. When I'm on a call, I'll show up differently and try to force a result that I want to have happen rather than being present. Um, there's 100 little choices that are being made that can either leave me like inspired and fulfilled or exhausted. And so I've been there many, many times. And yeah, I think it's hard for anyone to see. And that's why I think the stories that I work with, and it's hard for anyone to also see these stories. And there's this weird like two-sided dynamic of um, like, because you can't see the stories, you can't see your own value, and you're making decisions from this place of anxiety. And a lot of the times, the people that I work with, when they start expressing their stories differently, I'll share a story about a client of mine named JR, who was working with me all of last year. And I remember at one of my retreats in Austin, Texas, he shared a story from his past that we were working on. He was an executive for high end health and wellness clinics, and for a long time, he was working with a lot of different clinics. And I remember him telling this story of getting in a fight with his wife after being gone for several weeks at a time, being exhausted, being frustrated that his wife and his family don't appreciate all the work that he puts in to have a good lifestyle. And he ends up going up to his daughter and kneeling in front of his daughter. And he says, "Hey, are you afraid of me?" And she says, "Yes, especially when you and mommy fight." And you could hear a pin drop in the room when he's like talking about this moment. He kneels down in front of the audience like he just was kneeling in front of his daughter. And it's such an emotionally powerful story.
Mm.
And in that retreat, everyone was stunned when they heard it. But the thing is he was living that story again. When he was working with me, he was working for another clinic that was giving him 18-hour work days. His family was in Minnesota. The clinic was in Miami. And he would fly to Miami 3 weeks out of the month, work super long days, and just be under supported and without help. And the clinic was just a place of chaos. And so he was telling this story, and when he would tell it on stage, people would come up to him. People resonated with him. They were impressed. And he was bringing in good results for the clinic. But over time, there was this cognitive dissonance of him sharing this story and realizing the truth of his current situation that he couldn't be in. And from about the middle of last year into the fall, he started negotiating in ways that he hadn't before, sticking up for himself and his needs and asking for what he wanted within the clinic. And there was a lot of resistance at first. But he kept going, he kept trying. And over the course of a few months, new opportunities started presenting themselves to work with other clinics, to work with other things, to work as a fractional person. And I'm really underplaying how difficult this was and how standing up for his own value and his own perspective and his own things within this process was. But he messaged me about a month ago or 2 months ago, which is 9 months really after really sharing this story. And he's left the clinic. He's got several other gigs that he's been working in. And he just crossed a threshold where he was making more money working in these fractional jobs than he was in this clinic, which seemed to be locking him into keeping him in that state. Yeah. And he gave the talk again and made $130,000 from this story. And so I love that he made so much money from this story. And what I really love about this is that the truth of his story, he was unable to ignore it. And it initiated this journey of making different choices over a long time. And he wouldn't have, if it weren't for like expressing and practicing the story, he may not have noticed, or he may have been caught in this same loop over and over. And I see this process unfold with so many of the clients that I work with. And that's what really makes me proud of what I do. And a lot of the times, again, when I do some of this work and I help them draw out the right stories, they say, I never would have thought I would share this story. Yeah. But it's so much fun to transform how we relate to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. What is a story that you realize now that you had been using or telling yourself that was not helpful, not serving you?
I have all of the same like problems and neuroses that I have been describing. I have a difficult time understanding and really valuing my own life and my own space. Yeah. And this weekend, I took a trip to some hot springs in Oregon just on my own. I was hoping to go with a couple of friends, and the friends all fell through, and I just decided to go by myself. And went to the hot springs, which was lovely, and then I found this little forest spot that I could camp in by myself. and all of these judgments started arising. Um, that just camping by myself, I couldn't have any friends. Why couldn't I have a beautiful partner here with me? And it was fascinating. There was like a couple of things that I learned of. I work very, very hard to suppress these things, just like most of us do,
Yeah.
whether it's through working, whether it's through screen time, whether it's through chemicals, or all kinds of possible distractions are available to me. And I've engaged in so many of them. And allowing myself to like feel and listen to those things is really scary at first. But as I like sat with it and I decided like, I'm still great. I'm here where I am and I can be on my own and be living a beautiful life. I spent a lot of time journaling and just listening to myself. And there's something that happens when I really am journaling and I start doing it honestly with myself, that I feel like something is writing back to me and through me. Um, and I can remember a couple of pages deep, like seeing or writing, see, isn't that so much better? Don't you feel so much better? Look at how much easy it is to get in touch with yourself. And but yeah, there's this. I have this story of I am behind. I'm not good enough. I haven't succeeded enough in business. I haven't succeeded enough in my relationships. I haven't lived a cool enough of a life to to count for the existence that I have borrowed. And yeah, so it's there and it's present and it's something that I work on. And maybe it's like one of the reasons I love doing what I do so much, because it's like something that I want so much for me as well. And it's so difficult to provide for ourselves entirely.
So difficult. I absolutely know that we teach what we need to learn. And as long as we can continue to be students also, then we can be better teachers so that we can be better students. And it's a very healthy generative loop, regenerative loop to be in, because as long as we're learning and growing, now we can teach from this place instead of from the place we were at 10 years ago as we were learning and growing, or even a year ago or a day ago. And I'm curious if you will you share, as you're going through the process of looking at those fears, like, why am I not, with people or with my ideal partner, or with, why why me, kind of, the fear of I am not belonging, or I'm ostracized from the herd, or whatever that is. As those fears are coming up, what are you noticing that you're doing specifically? Because I want the people who are here with us listening and watching to walk away with real tools, real ways to help themselves do better, live more fully, love more fully. What did you do? What did you notice?
Well, like the bad way to do it is to start scrolling around in your phone, find something else to work on, find someone else to distract you. There's so many things, and the world is just getting better and better at providing those kind of things. But we know that, and we're here. Um, I think the first step is just allowing myself to actually feel those feelings and embrace the intensity that's happening and coming up. And instead of running from it, being curious about it, and being open to the messages that they have for me. And when I can do it well, and I can say this now on a podcast where I'm reasonably regulated and feel really smart, but when you're in the trenches of moments like this, it's not so easy, friends. And so I feel for you, and I feel for anyone there, and I'm still right there along with you. But
Same.
like it can be like when I actually listen to these things and let them run their course, It's me and my body and my soul trying to bring me back into alignment. There's such better things available to me if I can hear these messages. And the messages have to become painful because of how stubborn I am. And I know all of you are too. To have gotten to where you are, you have to be stubborn. And so, like, I've had a podcast where I've done over 400 episodes. I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of people's conversations about stories, and almost all the stories are of this kind of moment. I was acting out of integrity with my life, and life's message got so painful that it forced me to get back in integrity with my life, and then things got better. And I've listened to more than 400 of these stories. That's just on my podcast, thousands more in my work. And I've remembered saying to myself so many times, wow, I hope that I can actually learn a lesson from these people, that I won't have to do it myself. And I still find myself walking into these painful things and like hearing this. And so I guess there's like a good news and a bad news with it. And the bad news is like you can't read a book your way through this. You can't listen to a podcast. You can't find a YouTube video that's going to intellectually allow you to avoid this thing.
So
Yeah. But the good news is it's like, it really is in your best interest. Like the things that this pain, that if I can just sit with it and listen to it, is like trying to help me be the best version of me, be honest with myself, be true to myself. There are better things on the other side of it if I can slow down and allow it and tap into what my soul really wants to share and experience.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for that reminder, because it's so based on presence. And we have learned the million and one ways, like you said, to um, enchant ourselves out of being disenchanted with, substances, like relationships, work. I mean, I definitely did that with work. And, one of the things that we get the highest praise for is if we are overly functional, if we're hyper functional in this world, and that doesn't include feeling, or if it does, we alter how we're feeling so that we don't have to feel things that are difficult. But I hear you saying that when we can sit with it, be present with it, the feelings of awkwardness, of not belonging, of this not working out, of, that deal not going through, of whatever it is, then there's something there for us with full presence, self-regulation, honoring that we can work through these things that don't feel good, and we don't have to spin out, self-medicate, avoid all of those things. And if we do that, what's on the other side?
What you really want. I think there's a truth to it. If we can, like, I guess going back to just this weekend of sitting there by myself in the forest, first thing were these emotions boiling up. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I judging myself for being in a beautiful place by myself and thinking that this is not good enough, that these things should be? And I sat there and I listened and I found a truth. And there was this truth of I'm holding myself to a certain standard, and it wasn't my standard, and it wasn't my thing. And if I can give myself grace and relax into that, then I had a beautiful next morning, and I got really creative, and I made a fun little Instagram reel of making some coffee and sitting in some hot springs.
I love that reel.
Yeah, and it was like an act of like, this is valuable and this is beautiful, and I got to be lost in that creative process. And I find it's like the difference between a morning when I wake up in this anxiety and fear and I'm trying to like message a bunch of people on LinkedIn or whatever to try and
Yeah.
bring in clients, or if I find myself being creative, even doing things that aren't productive, like playing guitar, but I feel good and magic happens. Or recently, like approaching understanding AI tools and systems, not from a I need to do this or I'm going to get lost in the AI technology doom wave that's coming, but being like, whoa, this is kind of fun. Whoa, this is really cool. I figured out things and I felt proud of myself. And it's just like time moved quickly and I learned a way that I could have a system that was better for me, that was working for me.
Yeah.
And so I like it's really what you want. It's your own truth. It's your own honesty. It's your own alignment. And again, I'm not very good at listening to this all of the way. And I know that like it's seeking me too. Whether you're saying it's God or the universe or source or whatever the thing is, like it's trying to come to you. And this struggle that I've been moving with doesn't have to like block that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, and it's like what happened with maybe JR is a better example of the story of the cognitive dissonance and the discomfort. I know it was so uncomfortable for him because I spent a lot of time with him and I saw him working himself to the bone and knowing that he shouldn't be doing this. And then as he started listening and sharing the story, and now he's like, he like told me how exhausting it was to
Mm.
coach hockey for his kids. And I know that a million times he would rather be exhausted doing that. And I'm sure he still works really hard, but like that's what's on the other side if we can listen. And I can help you you out there experts in some ways get in touch with this. Tressa, you can help them in many other ways to get in touch with this,
Yeah.
um, with in relationship with themselves, in relationship with their coworkers, in relationship with their partners. um, but yeah, it's hard to do on our own, but
It is. But yeah, and I love the way that you do it. I love how you're talking about positioning that the struggle is and the resistance, in my experience, they serve to try to protect us. So if we have struggle and resistance, then we're either going to back down and stay safe, right, according to our brain, which only wants us to stay safe, or we're going to find the other way. We're going to find another, we're going to pivot. We're going to look at it a little bit differently. We're going to try to take a different lens perspective. And I think that's what, I know that's what you did with me when you did this work for me, which was the story that you gave back to me was more true than the story I was telling. And it was more clear and it made more sense to me. So it obviously is going to make more sense to the people that I'm talking with. And I was recently in Naples, Florida at Michelle Jacobic's Thrive Hive. And everyone should know Michelle too. I'll introduce you as well. And because you and I had done this work, my clarity was so fully present, and the feedback that I got from this particular speaking opportunity and connection opportunity with people there was beyond what I've ever received before. And I think that the just having those 3 points of clarity that you gave me that were slightly different or very different from what I thought my story was or what I thought people would connect with has been super substantially helpful to me. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate, even more than that, knowing that you're a real human being doing the work also that you're asking us to do. And you're ahead of us on it so that you can guide us in it. And that is what a true teacher is. And I love that you are, you grapple with the things of being human, the human, like, oh, humans, you're in it too. So what is one thing that you want people to ask themselves or know, just in case we never hear your voice again?
am I listening to what I really want, or am I listening to what I think I should be doing?
Beautiful. I think we should start our days with gratitude and that.
Mhm.
And I know that people are going to hear your voice again. That's not even an if. You are you are an important and valuable part of how we not only tell stories, but how we know ourselves in order to be able to tell the best stories, which is an extremely important skill moving into um, further into what AI is doing and helping us with. The actual human component of showing up in our truth, is beyond valuable right now. And everybody, I hope everybody gets to know you and gets to do this work with you because it changes how we see ourselves and therefore changes what we bring into the spaces between us. And I love you so much.
I love you too, Tressa. Thank you for showing up for me as well. And I'm so glad that the stories that we've created are helping you impact and reach the people that you need to reach. And yes, we
Every
need
day. Yeah,
we
thank
need
you.
people at their best right now, and
Yes, we
their
do.
best creative human selves.
Yes,
And
we do.
even with all of these AI things, I believe it's our human capacity that's going to be able to lead us through the challenges and uncertainties that we're facing as a people, as
Mhm.
all humans.
Yeah, as a global species, you're right. You're right. And where can people easily find you?
The best place to go is the storyengine.co. You can go there and hear my podcast every single week. I am dropping interviews with incredible leaders just like Tressa and helping them create powerful stories live on the show. And I'm always accepting new guests. And so there's a way that you can apply to be on the show as well. And then you can also on that site learn about the many different books I've published, check out long form blogs and content on better storytelling and better speaking, and learn about my products and services. And yeah, otherwise, you can find me. Probably the most active social media I'm on is Hey Kyle Gray on Instagram. And say hi. Let me know that you met me on Tressa's podcast, and I would love to connect with you.
I love that so much. And I have to say, I love your podcast. I love being on your podcast. Uh, that podcast, when I listened back to it, was so uncomfortable because it was so uncomfortable. And I don't think I've ever said and more than in that podcast. So if you want to listen to me being extremely uncomfortable and being confronted by and confronting that discomfort with Kyle and having him lead me through that, please put up with the ums and ahs as I stumbled my way through it because it was so valuable. And I listened to it again the other day, just as a reminder before I went and got on the stage. So thank you so much for the work you're doing with helping us see our own truth and tell our own stories in better ways. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on this platform and this labor of love. I appreciate you, Tressa.
You dove in. This is the Soul of Connection. Subscribe now. Stay close. Your full life depends on it.